you sat down to rest. Maybe it was the couch after work. Maybe it was bed at midnight. Maybe it was a Sunday afternoon with nothing you had to do. And it didn't work. Not because you weren't tired. You were exhausted. But the moment you stopped moving, your brain started. Replaying. Reviewing. Reminding you of things you can't fix right now. Things from yesterday. Things from 3 years ago. Things that don't even matter anymore, but apparently your brain didn't get that memo, and you've probably tried everything. The phone down, the breathing app, the just relax advice that's never once worked for a single person in human history. Here's what nobody told you. Your brain isn't broken. It isn't anxious. It isn't punishing you. It's waiting for something. And until it gets it, it will not stop. The human brain has one job above everything else: not to make you happy, not to help you sleep, not to let you enjoy a Sunday afternoon without guilt. Its one job is to keep you safe. And to a brain that takes that job seriously, rest feels dangerous, not consciously. You're not sitting there thinking, "I'm afraid to relax." But underneath, at the level of your nervous system, your cortisol, your threat detection system, something is saying, "Not yet. We're not done." There's still something unresolved. And that signal is so strong, so biological, so deeply wired, that no breathing technique, no chamomile tea, no productivity hack can override it. Because you're not dealing with a habit. You're dealing with a survival mechanism. And survival mechanisms don't respond to willpower. Here's what's actually happening. Your nervous system operates in 2 modes. The first is called sympathetic activation. This is your fight or flight state. Heart rate up, muscles ready, mind scanning for threats. This is the mode your body uses when something needs your attention. A deadline, a difficult conversation, an unresolved situation. The second is called parasympathetic activation. This is your rest and digest state. Heart rate slows, muscles release, the mind stops scanning. This is the mode your body needs to actually recover. The problem is the switch between them. Your nervous system doesn't switch automatically just because you sat down. It switches when it receives a signal that it's safe to switch, and that signal has a very specific trigger. Resolution. Not relaxation, not distraction, resolution. When something is unresolved, an argument that didn't end properly, a task that was left incomplete, an emotion that was felt but never processed, your brain keeps a file open. And open files keep the sympathetic system running in the background, like apps running on your phone you forgot to close. You think it's off. But it's draining the battery. It's keeping the processor warm. It's preventing the system from going into deep rest. Neuroscientists call this the Zeigarnik Effect, named after Soviet psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik, who discovered in the 1920s that the brain remembers unfinished tasks far more persistently than completed ones. Not because it's trying to stress you out, because it's trying to make sure you finish what matters. Your brain is not malfunctioning. It is doing exactly what it was built to do. It just doesn't know that the email can wait until tomorrow. But there's a second layer, and this one is harder to see. Some of what keeps your brain running isn't unfinished tasks. It's unfinished feelings. This is where it gets important. The nervous system doesn't distinguish between intellectual stress and emotional stress, an unprocessed emotion, grief that was pushed down because there was no time to feel it, anger that was swallowed because it wasn't safe to express it, sadness that was set aside because you had to keep going. These register as open files, too, not as emotions, as threat signals. Your brain interprets unprocessed emotion as unresolved danger. And unresolved danger means the threat detection system stays on. This is why you can have a perfectly fine day, objectively nothing wrong, no real problems, and still feel that hum underneath, that low-grade restlessness, that inability to fully arrive in the present moment. It's not anxiety. It's not a mood disorder. It's your nervous system holding space for something that was felt but never finished. Psychologist Peter Levine, who spent decades studying trauma and the body, Describe this as the nervous system's incomplete cycle. Animals in the wild shake after a threatening event, literally shaking, to discharge the stress response. Humans learn to suppress that discharge, to be still, to be professional, to move on. But suppressed doesn't mean resolved. It means stored, and stored stress keeps the system running long after the event has passed. Here's the reframe. Your brain not letting you rest isn't a problem with your brain. It's information. It's your nervous system telling you that something needs attention that hasn't gotten it yet. Not more productivity, not better time management, not an earlier bedtime. Something emotional, something unfinished, something that's been sitting in a drawer labeled "deal with this later," and later keeps not coming. The people who rest most easily aren't the ones who have the least stress. Research consistently shows that. They're the ones who have learned, usually without knowing it, to close emotional loops before they accumulate. A conversation they said out loud, instead of only in their head. A feeling they sat with for 5 minutes instead of scrolling away from. A moment they acknowledged instead of immediately moved past. Small acts of completion. That's all the nervous system needs. Not resolution of every problem. Not a perfect life. Just the signal that the feeling was received. That it was real. That it was allowed to exist. And here's the uncomfortable truth underneath all of this. For many people, maybe for you, rest doesn't feel safe. Not because of cortisol or open files or the Zeigarnik Effect, but because rest is when you finally have to be alone with yourself. And somewhere along the way, that became the scariest thing of all. So tonight, before you try to sleep, before you try to rest, before you try to force your brain into a quiet it doesn't feel safe enough to find, try this instead. Give it something to close. One thing you felt today that you didn't let yourself feel. One thing that happened that you haven't acknowledged. One thing that's been sitting in that drawer for longer than you want to admit. You don't have to solve it. You don't have to fix it. You just have to let it be real for a moment. Name it. Even just to yourself. This happened. I felt this. It matters. That's it. That's the signal your nervous system has been waiting for. Not silence. Not stillness. Not the perfect conditions for rest. Just the truth. That you were here today, and it was a lot, and you're allowed to put it down now. Your brain will let you rest when it trusts that nothing important is being abandoned. Give it that trust tonight. If this video described something you've been feeling but couldn't name, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to keep understanding how your mind really works, stay here. There's so much more.